Good morning everybody and welcome back to I Loaf You. Today we are going to be making a blueberry cheesecake. I have fresh blueberries here from the garden. They have been frozen and thawed, just that they did not go bad when they were picked. So we are going to start right off with the blueberry for the cheesecake, as it does get cooked separately from the cheesecake before it's mixed in. So we want to start right off by clearing our workspace and measuring out our ingredients. Alright, so to start with, I do not have a food processor here. So I am going to take our blueberries in a Ziploc bag, and I am going to mash these up really well. And since they were previously frozen, they should mash up pretty easily. If you need to let some air out, go ahead and do that. Or if you want to use a food processor, feel free to do that instead. That will be easier, but it may, it will take a little extra clean up. Alright, now that we have our blueberries mixed up, I have our sugar in our pan here. And we are going to add our blueberries right in. And then you want to add your lemon juice to this. And we are going to cook this up on the stove. Now we are going to bring this to a boil. I'm going to continue to stir it just every so often. We want to bring this to a boil, and we'll reduce it to a simmer. I'm going to cook it for around another 10 or so minutes from there. I am mixing this with a whisk just so I continue to break up the blueberries, as I did not use a food processor originally. So that will help break up the blueberries a little bit more. So again, we're just going to bring this to a boil on medium heat and then allow it to simmer, just so it reduces a little bit more and thickens and turns into a beautiful blueberry puree for mixing into our cheesecake batter. So now we are going to strain this, just because I'm not a huge fan of the chunks of skin of blueberry that will be in this puree. I don't want to have an issue with how chewy the cheesecake could turn out. Sorry about the sneezing, that is actually my phone in the background. So we are just going to run this through our sieve just to strain out the skin, or I guess husk, of the blueberry, just so that our cheesecake is more of a consistent consistency. So now we are going to prepare our pan before we make our crust. I have taken our springform pan and I just laid a piece of parchment paper over it and then closed the base into the ring. And I'm just going to cut off a little bit of this excess just so that it sits flat a little better. Now this is just going to make it so that it's easier to get the cheesecake out of the pan when it's done baking. And now from here, we want to surround this with aluminum foil. I'm going to take 2 pieces. I'm sorry this is very loud. And just set them together here. Now I'm folding just the ends, just so that it holds them together. And we just want to wrap and fold, so that way it comes up all the way around the edges of our pan. Just want to make sure that all of your foil is on the outside of the pan. You don't have any hanging over into the interior, just so that the cheesecake doesn't bake up into the foil. And then we are just going to spray our pan with some non-stick cooking spray. It is a non-stick pan to begin with. Sorry about that. But better safe than sorry. I don't like to have any part of my cheesecake stick to my pan when all is said and done. I don't want any mess or issues trying to get it out of the pan. Hence the parchment paper, non-stick pan, and non-stick spray. And then we will get our crust put together and pressed into our pan. Alright, so here we have our bowl with our granulated sugar. I'm going to add to that my crushed cookies. A lot of cheesecake recipes call for graham crackers, which I'm not particularly fond of. So I am using vanilla wafers for this. You could also use any type of cookie, really. I think with the blueberry cheesecake, a lemon cookie would be very good. Or if you wanted to pre-bake a sponge cake or yellow cake in the bottom of this cake pan, and then respray the edges or coat the edges in butter before you put your cheesecake batter in, then that would work as well. But we are going to stick with a graham cracker style crust, which is just going to be crushed up vanilla wafers. Again, you want to use your food processor, or I used a rolling pin and a Ziploc bag. It works just as well. So we'll just mix these up, and we are going to add in our melted butter. and just combine them together and then press them into the bottom of our pan. Now, we want to set aside our crust, and we are going to begin mixing up our cheesecake filling. So we are going to use 2 pounds or 4 normal 8-ounce size packages of cream cheese. We're going to put these in our mixer bowl first because we want to get these nice and well blended before we are adding anything into it. That way we don't have a lumpy cheesecake, because nothing worse than having lumpy cheesecake. So I know this looks a little different because I am using part of a 3-pound block or 4-pound block of cream cheese. So now I'm just going to put this on our mixer with the whisk and start to blend this up. Now I am working with this at room temperature. If it's still a little bit cold, you want to make sure that you are using the paddle attachment to start with until you start adding sugar to it. Otherwise, it could bend and break your tines on the whisk attachment. Now while you were blending up your cheesecake batter, you want to preheat your oven to 325 degrees Fahrenheit. If you didn't preheat it while you're mixing your batter, it's alright. You can let this sit assembled in your cheesecake pan for a little bit. It will be okay. It's not gonna hurt anything. So now I'm just making sure that I have it relatively lump free. If you want to run it through a sieve, you absolutely can. I'm not that super picky that I need absolutely every little tiny lump out. But I do understand a lot of people are like that. They're very texturally inclined. So now we are going to take our blueberry puree that we made and strained. It has been cooling this entire time, so this is perfect. And we are just going to add this all into our filling here. And then you just want to hand mix this all together. If you want it to be a little less mixed together, you can just do a quick little run through like this and dump it into your pan. It'll be a little more marbled. I am going to fully mix this all together so we are one consistent color all the way around. You'll see some small amounts of blueberry seed and skin do come through the sieve. It doesn't quite take out everything, and I wasn't inclined enough to pull out cheesecloth to really strain it all out, and that's okay. But you see with straining it, it does get it at least a little bit smoother. Okay, so now we are going to grab our pan. You will see I did go up the sides of the cheesecake pan just a little bit. I'm sorry, you're gonna hear a little bit of noise from outside. I do have the windows open here today. I did go up the sides of the pan just a little bit with our crust, just to make it a little easier for it to come out of the pan when it's done baking. So now we just want to scrape and pour all of this right down into the cheesecake pan. Now this recipe is supposed to be for a 9-inch cheesecake. I am using a 10-inch pan. So you will see here how that looks in a slightly larger pan. I know that I won't have to worry about it bubbling up over the top too much here. So now I am going to prepare my water bath for when this cheesecake is going in the oven. Now ideally for your water bath, you would have a pan that's large enough that your cheesecake could set into it, which is mainly why we wrapped it in aluminum foil. You would set the entire thing down into your pan. It appears that my largest pan is just a little too small for my cheesecake pan to set down inside of. So we are going to place this pan filled with water on the bottom rack of our oven, and then we will move the top rack down so it's just above this and place the cheesecake on that top rack. Now you just want to make sure that you watch it so that you don't over brown the top of your cheesecake. And you want to make sure that this doesn't run out of water and burn inside your oven. So we will get that all in place in the oven. I will show you, and then we will let it bake, and I will show you again. Alright, so this is how we are doing it. I have our water on the bottom shelf. I moved this rack down as close to the water as I can, and then I have the cheesecake just on that top shelf above it. So now we are going to close the oven and allow this to bake. All right, the cheesecake looks beautiful. So now to cool it, we are going to turn the oven off, and I am going to leave the oven shut just until it is cooled down most of the way. And then we will pull the cheesecake out and allow it to finish cooling. I like to allow it to start cooling as the oven cools down. That way it's not too drastic and the top of the cheesecake doesn't crack too badly. So we are going to turn the oven off and allow the cheesecake to stay in here.